All right, we got another tradition going on the CITIUS Mag podcast. He runs a marathon. A couple days later, jumps on to chat with me. Welcome back, Conner Mantz, coming off a 209 flat, which I'll give you the American course record. Let's knock Alberto Salazar off the books because his course was a little bit short. And I know that there's people out there who are saying, yeah, but if he would have held that pace, he probably would have run faster than 209. 26.2 miles is 26.2 miles. Congratulations, Conner Mantz, on the American course
Thank you.
record in New York City, finishing in sixth place, top American. How are you feeling?
Oh, good. I as I said right before we started recording, just still trying to analyze it, trying to figure out, okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? But yeah, just lots of thoughts, a little bit of disappointment still, but a lot of thoughts with it.
Where does that disappointment stem from? Because, I mean, just in general, we take a step back, and the whole year has been great. Win at the U.S. Olympic trials, eighth place at the Olympics, top American there, sixth place at the New York City Marathon, top American there. And I know you don't take any consolation prize in top American honors anymore.
Right. I mean, I think I kind of said this to you in the press conference beforehand. It's like, if I use CJ as the example, but it's like if there's an American I'm focused on beats me by or I beat him by 2 minutes, but he goes and runs 2:20. If it's 2:18 is the top American, I'm not going to be happy with that, with a time like that. Or if I'm 2 minutes or 3 minutes back from the win, but I'm top American, it's not this. I don't know. It's a nice thing because there's occasionally prize money involved with that, and I'll be happy about that as long as I get it. But I think um, my goals aren't to be the top American. I don't think I look at some of the best marathoners from the U.S., specifically like Mepka Flesky or Ryan Hall, or even some of the times Jared Ward was running, he wasn't. They weren't. None of them were focused on trying to be the top American in their races. So I don't think that's really my goal. Like I'm happy about it, but if I had taken, let's say I'd taken third at NCAA's, instead of winning it, my last 2 years, I would have been the top American, but I would have, I wouldn't be too happy about that.
Yeah. So what would have been satisfying here for you? I guess the fifth place is close, 10 seconds
Fifth place
away.
was very close. I
And other than
think,
that, like the podium, and we look at the guys and the names in that group, most of them,
right,
every one of the top one, two, three, four, five, yeah, five, the five guys ahead of you have won this race before.
right, and that I can be happy. Like I
Yeah.
lost to good people. I think if let's say, yeah, fifth, I would have been happier about, for sure, just because that was kind of my like, okay, a good day I thought was fifth, a great day, I thought I could be top three, and like a perfect day I could win it. Now, I didn't really want to have those be my goals. I kind of set those up in my mind beforehand, but I was also like trying to eliminate that because I'm not in charge of how fit those guys are. Like, there's nothing I can do that'll um, like no matter how hard I work, they could be working harder. They could be doing something better. They could be, they could just be more talented. So I was trying to take out that, but my main goal in this race was just execute my race plan, make sure I ran a race that afterward I could feel like good about. And I think I did really well for most of the race. I don't think I've ever done as good of a job leading up to the race in a marathon, at least. And so I think the little bit disappointment is I miss execution more so from mile 19 to um, like 20, like 24 and a half. No, more like just before 25.
Hmm.
I think I just lost a little bit of focus, and I I don't know. I needed to be a little bit more focused in that portion.
All right. So let's set up. the race, and then we'll break down how it all unfolded. So at the pre-race press conference, you said you were feeling great, and in chatting with Clayton and from watching his docu-series, you were, you know, a bit ahead of him in workouts, and he point blank said, "This is the fittest that he's ever seen you." Did you feel that same way?
I definitely felt very fit. I don't know if I was fitted for the Olympic build or this build, but I definitely felt like workouts were a lot easier this time. Um, and I felt like every workout, for the most part, I was holding back this build, and it was always trying to hit the brakes. Like, we don't want to go too hard today. Don't want to go too hard today. And so, um, I felt very, very fit and very excited to race. I don't know, how I can measure that and be like, yes, this was the fittest I've been. Um,
Is there no one
Unless
workout that really like wowed you compared to any
it,
other previous marathon build?
I don't think there were like a few long runs where I had some really good pickups. There was we did a nine, where it was 8 miles at like marathon effort, and then coach said I could add on, and he didn't say like any specifics if it was, I add on a mile fast or I could just keep adding on 2 miles. So I just decided. I talked to him before about adding on and doing a little bit more, but the goal was run with Clayton the first 8 miles, and then I can do either 2 more miles or 1 more mile fast. And I did 1 more mile fast. It was a little uphill, and I ran like it was either like 4:19. If you go off coach's stopwatch and where I threw my hand up, it was like a 4:18, but I think it was closer to like a 4:19 or 4:20. Um,
This is uphill at
yeah,
altitude.
but it was uphill and at altitude, and it felt like I started it at like pretty slow because it was kind of a hill and then it turned downhill and then the rest was a gradual uphill. And I mean, at that point, I was like, oh, that felt pretty easy. Um, and up to that point, I'd average like it was kind of this hold back every mile. I think I averaged like 40, 46 or 45 up to that point for those 8 miles. And I was like, oh, like this is me feeling like I'm running marathon effort, marathon pace. Feels really chill. And then I can go out and run a ninth mile at, 4:19 and 4:20. And I don't know, I felt very comfortable at those paces. So I was like, okay, like I'm very excited to see how New York goes. Had a really good 8x800 session a week and a half out. That's always a fun workout for me, but
Yeah,
I
what'd you
think
get
it
down
was
to?
I finished at two flat, but I think I averaged 203 low. I think my last four were 202, 202, 202, two flat.
What's the rest on
And
that? Because you've done that one before.
yeah, it's a lap jog, and
Oh, okay.
sometimes it's like 2 minutes, and sometimes it's 3 minutes. So it's a decent amount, but it felt pretty chill. Um, Maybe a little more difficult than other workouts that build, but it had a lot of these workouts, like my long runs felt really good. I was really dialed in with my bottles and my fluid intake during workouts and long runs. And so um, yeah, it was just the workouts were feeling easy, and I felt like I was trying to hold back, and then I would still run faster than I was supposed to, or then coach would prescribe, and it would feel like I would just kind of like gradually, I don't know, speed up in workouts. Like we did a pretty early in the build, we did a 2x5 mile session, and I averaged like 4:40. It was like 3 minutes rest, but I would start my first mile in like the high 440s and then be running low 430s at the end. And it was just like a nice, um, it was just like things were just locking in at a faster pace than normal. At first, I was blaming the weather because it was all of a sudden we were getting these cool weather days that we hadn't had all summer. And we had hot weather days all summer. So I was like, must be the weather. That's why I'm running fast. But then over time, it was like, even on our warmer days, I was feeling pretty good. And the 10 mile at Twin Cities felt like I had a goal to try and run 4:30s. I ended up getting a little sick, but then there was a tailwind. So instead of not starting, I was like, well, there's going to be a massive tailwind. can't not start when I know it's gonna be a fast day, like, and then the morning of I woke up feeling fine. But it was like even that race, I knew I was gonna run something really good if I wasn't feeling too sick, and I wasn't during the race, and it was just like this natural like pace. I was able to just lock in and get it done. So
Yeah.
nothing like specific that comes to mind, but it was more than I could lock in and hit these faster paces.
Yeah. 45-13 totally flew under the radar, I would say, in terms of just like getting the attention that that performance deserves. What does that tell you about like your half marathon potential and fitness right now? I guess in the ideal world, I'll put out a podcast in the next couple days as well with Joe Klecker that he's thinking of going for an early 2025 half marathon. I think that's a way of saying Houston before the
Right.
actual announcement probably comes out. Uh, I feel like it would set up so nicely for you two to duel for the American record in Houston.
I'd love it. I haven't talked to Joe about it, but I'd love to chat with him. Like, I want to get. I don't know, after New York, I'm a little, and after that 10 mile, I'm a little bit hungry still. So even though I'm, backing off and taking it easy now and doing everything coach says, my mind is kind of racing because I'm excited about whatever's next.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the fact that Ryan Hall's record has stood for so long, you're of the mindset that, like, yeah, I could go down.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I've said that a bunch, and
I think you have, yeah.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure people are gonna, give me flack for saying it, and then it still hasn't gone down. But I think, we have the guys to do it with super shoes. Um, it's like it's going to go down soon. And then when it goes down, I think you're gonna get like five Americans that'll run faster than it.
Yeah.
Like, because whenever Grant Fisher runs a half, and you're gonna get Joe Klecker, and then I'd like to put myself in there, and then Woody, and then you never know. Like Hillary Ward could run something fast if I think he has his right day. Um, and so there's a slew of guys I think that could break it on the right day, but a lot of us, a lot of the marathoners, like our seasons revolve around marathons. We're not going to try and peak for a half marathon to run fast. Like, why would I do that when I could go try and run, drop another minute or two off of marathon PR? I'm not going to peak for a half marathon. And I think a lot of the 10K guys, it's been kind of the same thing. Like they're doing, Grant's doing 10K, 5K. Um, Woody's been doing 10K, 5K, and then you got same with Clucker. And so
Yeah.
um, I think there's a bunch of guys that could get it that are like, I don't know, that are pretty fast, but the incentive, I don't think there's as much of an incentive to be um, an American record holder in the half marathon as opposed to the like making a team in the 5K or 10K or
The
the
financial
marathon.
payoff of a marathoner.
Yeah, and not even the financial, but like the goals are like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't see a lot of people being um as excited about it. Like I bet Grant would go for it, but now he's signed with Grand Slam Track, and now I bet he's thinking about the 5K and 3K all the time.
Yeah. Which we'll touch on your own hopes for involvement in Grand Slam later on. We've been doing a lot of talking forward thinking about, things to come next year. I'll loop back on all of that. Let's unpack the race. So for this one, Clayton told me that there were two separate meetings set up for with Coach Eyestone. And this time around, it wasn't that he missed the meeting or was running
Yes.
late. It was intentional that things would be separate. So, what was your discussion with Coach Eyestone like? Take us through, that one on one.
So we had heard rumors about athletes being hurt. Who were the top athletes? I mean, it's obvious. You look at Bashir Abdi's race; it sounded like he had something going on. Um, Tola definitely didn't race, as well as we would have expected. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had something going on too. You know, not to take anything away from Abdi with his win, but it was like I had heard that there were injuries up top, and so Coach and I were pretty hopeful about me coming away with the top three finish and even contending for a win. And yeah, we sat down, we met, and it was about like, okay, how can we maximize my chances? And the goal in the race, he said, was like deploy, get out, be in that front pack those first 16 miles, then enjoy first half, like be smart, but make sure that he pretty much said pretty much that first 20 miles, trying to run with that front pack, unless they're running faster than 4:45. And he said between 4:45 and 4:50, that's the sweet spot. That's kind of what we're looking for these miles. And then once you hit mile 20, that's when you got to expect it to be a race, start as a race. And then, but he's like, and that's the destroy part. And he said during that period, still don't take the lead. He's like, wait until like 5K to go, until a mile to go. Like, really be patient as can be because these guys are really good. There's enough, there's enough athletes that could really break away late in the race. So, and like keep making moves. So just be patient. That was kind of what we went over in our meeting was more of a patience attitude. Like, don't take the lead. Just kind of hang out behind the wall of people that are going to be pushing the pace and be okay with that. Um, that was the big part of our meeting.
Yeah.
And yeah, one other thing that we talked about a lot that I think I didn't do well in was like being, and this kind of comes back from Kenneth, but like be courageous, like be willing to put yourself in it. Be courageous in a sense of hold back when it's easy when it's hard to hold back when the race is going on. But before the real race starts, hold back. But then when the real race starts, put yourself in.
So I'll have your Strava caption from the day help guide me through the play-by-play of this race. So early on, everyone is pretty bunched up together for the first 15 miles. And we'd see these tiny surges happening, and then most people would think it's a move, then it wasn't. Everyone would be back bunched up. Even I guess like going across the Verrazano Bridge, like the Japanese guy pushed from the front and you just went right with it. Did you ever feel like there was like, oh man, like because the pack is reconnecting, like kicking yourself, like, why did I waste some of that energy going with a move?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wasn't too worried about the first mile because we were like 5:35. So I was like, I'm gonna go with this move because it feels like I'm jogging. And if he pushes the pace, if Humamori pushes the pace, I can go with him, and then when the pack catches back up, I'm fine. Like I didn't have to do this huge surge. But after that, there were a lot I like went with, and there were a few in particular that I would see anytime I saw Evans Chebet start moving. Just because I know how good he is. Raced him in when I raced him in Boston, he made a move at 15 and a half, or no, like 16 miles, right after 15 miles.
I was going to bring this
And
up because CJ said the same exact thing. It's like CJ did the opposite, I think, of what you did. You went with the move, but CJ stayed back with like Rory and was like,
yeah.
no, I've raced Evans enough times to know that this guy does this all the time. Like that's not a real move. We're going to get him back in a second. So you're saying you did the opposite. You went with it.
Well, yeah, early in the race, he kept making these little surges. And so I
Yeah.
would go with him like, this is the move. And it would last maybe 30 seconds. And there was some like around a half marathon, there were some earlier. And so I was like, this is it. And it was never a move until the 25K one where I think that's where I started to make mistakes. because I went with him. Well, am I good to start talking about 25K?
Uh,
Or
one
you
thing
want me
really
to?
quick.
Yeah.
You said you had the urge to pee from 5K until the later miles. Not a pleasant experience.
No,
How'd you hold it in?
I was I was trying to go. I was like, I just want to let it go all out. There were a few times we passed by the bathrooms, and I was like, we're running slow enough. I could stop and then catch up. Like,
But
but
you
that,
kept it together the whole race.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it hurt. Like my stomach was aching. But I think like it ended up being fine because it was a very painful 20K. We'll say that. Like,
Yeah.
but I just knew, I'm fit. I kind of owe it to myself. Like myself, we trained this hard to push through like this uncomfortable feeling.
When was the last time you peed before the race? Was it immediately before, or do you
It's
think
like
you're like, oh man, you know what? I should have gone right before while we were
it it,
at Ocean Breeze.
it no, it was like 10 minutes before.
Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, there wasn't anything else you could have done.
No, there wasn't anywhere else to go again. And I mean, I probably pee more than anybody else I know. Like it's like a genetic thing. Like I swear my family has like a small bladder or something. So like before a race, I'll probably like an hour leading up to a race, I'll probably pee every 10 minutes, maybe even more often than that. And like maybe it's way too much information, like definitely too much, but no, like I think it drives some of my training partners nuts that I'll stop probably 4 times in a long run to pee.
This is the detail that was left out of the nerves that you were feeling when remember when we did the podcast right after the trials and I had kind of asked you like how nervous you were and you said you were like pretty nervous, sitting down, legs were shaking, all that kind of stuff that I guess like the question I didn't ask then is how many times did you pee before the trials?
I needed to go before the race, but and the bathrooms and the trials were all like 15 people deep and we had like 10 minutes. So um the lines are 15 deep. But like, yeah, when that adrenaline hits, like you're not thinking about it. Like
No.
it shuts down that system. And
Do you think not peeing yourself in the race cost you fifth place?
no, I think it just made me uncomfortable.
All right. I just wanted to leave no stone unturned there. All
Yeah,
right.
I don't want to say that was an excuse. I just think it just made it more uncomfortable.
Let's get to 25K then.
Okay.
Um, this is when the pack starts to dwindle a little bit. Frank makes the move on the bridge. It isn't a marathon without high fives or sharing bottles with you, and you decide to share your bottle with Tashome McConan, who I guess missed his. And then at the same exact time, that's when Evans Chebet makes, the surge that he's done in the past on the New York City Marathon course.
And I think that may have been I think there was like one big mistake and then this little mistake I made mid-race. And I think that was the little like it's hard picking apart this race because I think I did so many things right that I'm like it's kind of hard because I don't want to say like this is what it was, but I did like trying to tell I was telling to show me like um this is Morton and um just letting him know what's in it just because like there was one time I know there was another athlete once who was I won't say who I've shared a bottle with who didn't like Morton, and I didn't tell him. He just asked if I could have the rest of if he could have the rest of my bottle, and I gave it to him, and he's just kind of like, "What is this?" So I was letting to show my know, hey, it's Morton um, that I use, and as I'm like trying to describe this to him, and I'm giving it to him, I'm just not thinking like I'm thinking about, we've been running really slow for a long time. I'm in my five flat rhythm. Like that's the rhythm I'm in is I'm just running five flat pace because that's what everybody in this pack is running. And I look up and I see Chebet is gone and like I'm at the back of that pack. Because I slowed down. My bottle is at bottle station 10 And I either meant I had to be at the front of the pack to be the first one to grab it, or I need to be at the back because otherwise I'd have people weaving in and
Hmm.
out of where I was. And I'd usually just get cut off. So staying at the back, I was on the last table. Um, and in the first four bottle stations, everyone slowed down a ton after they grabbed their bottle. So it didn't really matter. But this one, it was like I was already at the back of that pack when that move was made. So I had a very slow reaction to it. Um, and then we came off the bridge and I like knew what was happening. I knew it was Chebet moving. I tried to push and I think I wasn't that far back. But then we hit the mile marker, and I was probably 3 to 5 seconds back. I knew I didn't want to go with him completely, like kind of like CJ said. I wanted to hold back a little bit, um, but I wanted to catch back up to that pack.
Is that
And
pace still in Coach Eyestone's range of like, hey, like you can if it if it's within this range, cover the move.
he didn't give me a range like late in the race because so many things could happen. But I think um, I would very much like to know what would have happened had I completely covered it.
Yeah.
But I think it was this move happened. I wasn't ready for it, which I should have been, like mentally. Like I'm not going to say that's an excuse today, but um, yeah, I think just because of how late in the race it is and how slow we've been running, Coach always was like, use your own. He pretty much said around from 16 to the finish, use your own judgment on what pace is right.
Hmm.
And so I hit 4:31. I was splitting my watch at every mile marker just because in the cities and the race courses they don't have the most accurate GPS. And so I saw 4:31, and I'm like, okay, like I think I can still catch them. They're slowing down. They're getting into a rhythm, and there was two guys I was with. It was Bibbs 8 and 9. I can't remember.
I'll tell you who they are in a
Um,
sec. It
yeah,
was Abel
one was the
Kipchumba and
yes, the young Ethiopian guy.
Adisu Gobena. Yep.
Yeah, that guy. Um, And so the young Ethiopian guy, I ran behind these guys and I realized they were going too slow. So I kind of went to the front and was like, come on, guys, like let's work together. Let's catch that front pack. And then the Kenyan, Abel Kipchumba, right?
Yep.
So he went to the side of me and like, we ran together a little bit. I just ran behind him, but then I didn't realize he had slowed a lot. And I must like I don't know why he passed me. But I think when he did, we just slowed a lot. And there was a moment kind of in that 18th mile. The 17th was 4:31, 18 was 4:38. That like during the 18th mile, there was a point where I was trying to catch that front pack. But then there was a car that got in my way, and like I just
I
wanted to
heard
see the
about
front pack.
this.
And then I passed the car, and then I slowed down a little bit, getting in my rhythm, and the car passed me back, and it was like, okay, come on, like I'm just trying to like, I don't know, work on watching them. Like if I can see them, if I can see their backs and I can like focus on trying to catch them, I think it's easier to push. Um, Again, it's not a real reason. I should have pushed a little bit more anyway. It's just an annoyance, kind of like the needing to pee. It's like it's not a reason I didn't catch them, but it was like just a little more annoying things.
Was there so that was a
Um,
car. Was there something else with a bike on the course or no?
there were there was a bike later. Um, there I got more annoyed by people crossing the street or getting in the road.
Oh, that's New York.
Um, yeah, I was like, I like, and when I'm the only one, this was like a mile and a half later than this. I was like the only one on the court. Like I didn't realize Clayton was pretty close to me. But I'm like, why are people getting in my way? Like it happened twice in within like a mile. It was like right before I caught Kip too, and it was like a whole group crossing the crosswalk in the middle of the race, and it was just like, guys, come on, like
That's
I'm
wild
running
when there's just
right
so
where
much
you
room.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you walked, you know. if you're 2 steps ahead of where you are now, I wouldn't have to worry about going around you. Um,
So was it
but
Wesley you were chasing for a lot of it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I saw Wesley fall off, I think
He fell off
um,
hard.
he fell off hard, but he wasn't falling off that hard at first. I just knew like I could tell like if you fall off from a pack like that and I'm gaining on you, then I'm gonna pass you soon. And Abel dropped off around in the 19th mile, maybe 20th mile. I think it was 19th. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna hit 6 miles to go. And with 6 miles to go, I'm gonna catch sixth place. And I didn't catch Wesley until about 5K to go,
Hmm.
going up the hill. But I was getting I don't know, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna catch Wesley. And I was like satisfied with that. I was satisfied knowing, yeah, I'm gonna take sixth today. Like I looked back and I saw a bike, but I didn't see anybody else. Didn't know Clayton was like, I don't know, 50 to 100 meters behind me every time I looked back. But I was like, I don't see anybody back there other than this biker. So I was just in a way like I got a little complacent because I couldn't see fifth. I couldn't see like fourth, third, second, or first. I just could see Wesley, and so I was like, well, dang it. But it's been a good seat. Like I just kind of got this complacent attitude that is very unlike me, but it somewhat happened um in the Olympics, but more so in this race than I think it did then. Because it was like I knew this prize money for top American. I'm probably gonna be top American. I think I need to work on that. Like I look at it now and within a couple hours, like not even an hour after the race, I was like, oh crap, like I left way too much in the tank.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the thing that sticks out to me about just like how these championship style like races, both the Olympics, New York, that the challenge that you've found yourself in both of them is that by the time that the race ends up being 5K to go, the place order is most of the times like determined already. And like maybe there's one spot and it's like, what else can you do to stay engaged the whole time? And I guess like the one thing you had was at about 24 miles, that's when you hear the crowd start to cheer for, well, I feel like it was later than that, maybe like 25.
it was almost 25, yeah.
You start to hear the crowd cheering for Clayton, and Clayton's getting it from the crowds like catch Connor, catch Connor.
Right.
What describe the moment that you turn around and you see his blue and yellow kit charging at you.
Yeah, yeah. I was like I didn't hear it until close to 25. And I was so confused because I heard like let's go Mance, let's go Clayton. And I was like, oh, it must be like one of Clayton's docu-series followers. Like somebody that just knows we're always together.
Plus,
And
people always confuse both your names.
oh,
Like, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then I haven't looked back in a minute and I'm just like complacent, like I'm gonna take six, but at least I'll be top American. There's really good prize money for that. And like I I I am just kind of like I feel like I'm just kind of running it in. And like I don't know why I was thinking that because there were so many more miles left in the course, but I don't know, running's hard. Like when it gets tough and it's just like, oh, I can just like there's nothing like I didn't know what pace I was running. I didn't think I was gonna run that fast of a time anyway. So it was like, all right, just kind of pushing, just kind of riding this thing out. And I had some slow miles, slowish miles, like kind of back to the same as uh this first 16 miles.
Yeah, I'm looking
And
at them
then
right now. 23 was 449, 24. Well, actually, wait, that's your Strava. Let's see what you actually
yeah,
clicked off.
I I wrote them all down at the bottom of my post.
Yeah, so I'm seeing 453, 504, 444, and then I'm assuming, oh, and then the final thing was 55.9 seconds for the point 22. Oh, and then 443.
So I think I see Clayton and I just like I look back after hearing "Let's go, Mans, let's go, Clayton," and I take off because I'm like, dang it, like I was so like thought I was so complacent and fine about I'm going to take six, and I know Clayton's really good. I know Clayton can pass me at the end of a marathon. He always finishes his marathons really well. And it was just like if it's anybody, like, yeah, let's let it be my teammate, my training partner. But I really didn't want to get past because I was like, wait a second. I've already done all this work. Like in my mind, I'd already taken six. I kind of, let the result be there. And I mean, that's my biggest mistake of the race. I didn't keep pressing from mile 19 to the finish. And so I speed up a lot for like a half mile. And then I hit, and maybe it was probably closer to 24:7 is probably
He
what I
got
saw.
within 3 seconds at one point.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I looked back, it was probably even closer, but it was 3 seconds at one of the splits.
Hmm.
And I just take off. And it's funny because I look at my splits now and I'm like, I was running 4:30 pace for that point between 40K and, you know, a mile to go, like that 600-meter spot. Like I had way more left in the tank if I could run 4:30 pace at the end of a marathon. And then I do one more half mile like surge. I keep surging until I hit about a half mile to go. And I look back and like there's no way Clayton's gonna pass me now. There's a big gap. And so I kind of keep pushing, but it's not like my heart's not in it. And then I see in the distance at the 400-meter to go mark, I see Jeffrey Camworth, who I thought was actually Abdi. And I was like, because they have the same NN kit. And I was like, oh, I could catch him. And I pushed for a little bit. And then I realized it like when I hit, in between the time I hit 400 and 200 to go. And I was like, oh, yeah, he has too much ground on me.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have pushed a little bit to get under 209. But um,
You should
yeah,
just, you need to practice your lean at the finish line.
I, that's probably it. No, I think I just needed to I had it in me to push more. Like to get 1 second, I definitely had it in the final 400, in the final 100 even. It's just hard at the end of a marathon when you're like, what's the point of running a second faster? Like it doesn't mean that much. I'm really tired. I'm ready to be done. Um, but
Yeah.
I needed a really, I don't know, it's that mental strength that I think I'm good at, unless we start out a race slow and then I kind of get discouraged early on.
We need to just find more people around you in those late stages because it's like to keep you engaged in the race, you just need more people
Yeah.
around you. So it might just be just like the strength of the field where it's like the more packed it is in the last couple miles, the more will keep you engaged, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, like I think it was pretty good at the Olympics with that, but I
Yeah.
think at this race it was tougher because there's the turns through Central Park, and they had like a minute on me at you know probably with a mile and a half to go, so it didn't feel like I didn't know how far away they were how far ahead of me everyone was. I just knew it was a decent amount, and so it was like, well, I'm probably not going to catch them, but I need to change my attitude a little bit.
Yeah. One more caveat on the final parts of the race is that, well, one, you didn't run the NYC half earlier in the year. I remember that you were on the start list and scratched from that. And then Clayton also mentioned how on the shakeout the day before, he pointed out to you where the parts of the course in that final stretch are on Central Park South. That he pointed out to you is like, hey, by the way, Connor, like this is the course. Like this is gonna be 600 meters to go. This is gonna be where we're gonna turn into the park. And he says like that. In retrospect, I mean, that's out of the kindness of being your training partner and teammate, but a little nugget of information that if he hadn't told you, he wonders if it could have changed the outcome. I don't know. Well, you still had the
Um,
extra gear in you.
the the fact that I could and I definitely had a lot left even after that. I don't think it would have changed it. It was very helpful though because I had run the half before like a few years ago,
Yeah.
and I thought the finish was this.
In the park from the other way.
I thought it
Yeah.
was well, I thought it was in the park from that way, but I thought looking at the 5K race, I thought you finished the same
On the lower
there's
loop.
about I thought it was the same last mile as the 5K.
Hmm.
Because there were even markers out on a 5K course that had like, this is 1 mile to go, this is 3/4 mile to go, this is a half mile to go. And so when I got in, I was like, I'm gonna run in the park and just figure out what the race course is.
Yeah.
And so I went and I'm like, oh, this is a half mile to go, this is a 1/4 mile to go, this is 3/4 to go.
The race day, you'd
When
have been like, when
really,
did they change it?
yeah, yeah, and it was like, and really it was just the two turns that you kind of go out of the park and then you come back into it. So I don't think it would have made much of a difference because I knew how far I was running.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know how much benefit for me personally there is in knowing the course. Like I like maybe I should
Well,
rephrase that. Like
Orlando
it
had
definitely,
helped. You did a little recon there.
yeah. And I think like it's nice to know it, but I don't think it's necessary for me. Like I think about from my first Chicago to my second, like did I do anything based off my me knowing the course different? Like did I do anything different because I knew the course? And I'm like, not really. I
Yeah.
just went out a little faster. But
So what's the
I
feeling when you cross the finish line? I know you said you feel like you had a lot left in the tank. Like this is your second fastest marathon of the year. In general, I guess like again, the places shook out how they did, and you were only 10 seconds shy of fifth, but overall, what were the feelings?
um this is like I think I felt like I kind of wasted an opportunity. Um
Which, like, for the people listening to
yeah,
this, like, there's no harsher critic of a pro marathoner's performance than that pro marathoner. And so it's
right.
like hearing you, hearing Clayton, I just recorded with CJ yesterday as well. Like,
Oh, nice.
everyone always plays the what if game. What if I would have covered this
Yeah.
move or that move? So it's not like I just want to make it clear so that you don't get any sort of flack. You're not being a Debbie Downer or anything like that. It's just sort of like the
No,
standard for excellence is so much higher you have for yourself.
right. Right. And I don't even think it's like I needed to cover that move as much as it was I just needed to stay engaged for that
Yeah.
that 5 mile portion, that 6 mile portion. Um because I like the fact that I reacted so hard when Clayton got to me made me know, oh, I was not engaged for those few miles. And I don't like I look at my training, I look at everything I've done, I feel like there's nothing that I'm like, I need to do this differently in training. It was more of I just need to like I'm a little um confused. I don't know, like perplexed. I'm trying to figure out what it was that I needed to do in the race. Well, I feel like I know what I need to do in the race, but what do I need to do to prepare myself for that? And everything I think of is like, oh, I practiced that. I worked with a sports psychologist that, we talked about how to stay in the moment in the right moments and how to stay out of it in the moments you need to stay out of it. You don't want to think too much during a marathon. And I feel like I did really, really well at a lot of things that I have done really bad at this year. And so it's hard because it's like it was as far as execution, for the most part, it might have been my most successful marathon
Hmm.
um, of the year. But I think they were just a couple. There was one big mistake, and I think that's kind of like that's it. It's like I feel like I was so close to having a not like quote perfect performance, but I prepared really well. I felt like my warm up went really well. Like I didn't get too nervous in the warm up. I didn't get too nervous right on the start line. I didn't get too nervous at any time. I felt like I was calm. I was ready to start out pretty quick. I was all right to start out slow, but it was just it's just this one mistake. So I'm not like, I'm not that, like, I'm not bummed. I'm not too bummed about it, but it's that one thing I really wish
Yeah.
I would have changed.
All right. So you being a really strict, harsh teacher, let's give some report card grades on these marathons from this year. So we'll start with the trials. A through F, what would you grade the trials?
Are we doing just the race or are we
Oh, good
doing the
question. All right,
like
let's
build?
do build and the race.
The build, that's just hard because it's like I think I did a good job with that build with what I had.
Okay.
So I don't know, I'd say something like um, probably a B plus with the race, A minus with the race. Um, that build, it's hard to not be like, I want to give myself an A because I was hurt and I was sick and I
I think you could give
did
yourself
really,
an A.
really, yeah, I'd give myself an A based off, well, I mean, it's hard because it's like, well, I got myself hurt. But then I'm like, well, sometimes you can't control that. Like you can, but can you really know how, do you know how much, um,
You know what that's like? That's like you get the first couple questions wrong on a test. That's you getting hurt. And then you make up for it in like the extra credit at the very
yeah,
bottom
that's
of the
true.
test.
That's
So
true.
you could still end up with an A.
Right. And I mean, you don't know who has COVID. Like I look at that build and I'm like, I got COVID. And I think that's what led me to overtraining through that and getting a stress reaction. Then I had a bacterial infection. So I think that
Yeah,
build
you
was
got a
an
lot of
A.
questions wrong at the beginning of that test.
Yeah, I had just throughout the test, but fortunately there was a lot of extra credit.
Yeah.
But that race, yeah, probably a B plus, A minus. Um, the Olympics, um, that build was definitely like that was a very solid build. I'd probably give the Charles an A minus because I'd love to because I think the build for the Olympics was really, really good. Again, the race, probably that same B plus. Um, yeah, like I reviewed the race recently, so I realized, some
You
of the
told me
things I'm
this
like,
during the press conference. You were
oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, you know what, Chris, after that podcast, it was like I was being a bit harsh on myself. Like Tola's move actually was a bit more definitive.
yeah, yeah, and I don't think I could have gone with that. So, well, I think maybe I could have, if I knew what was going to happen, I could have done better. But based off what happened, yeah, same thing. Probably an A minus, B plus, and even this race, I think the build, it was better. But that part of that comes back from the build from the Olympics. It comes back from years and years of running. So I'd say, this build was better, but the race itself, I think the stay engaged part would give
You're
me a
really
B
knocking
plus.
yourself some points for that.
Yeah, yeah, like that's really it. That's what crushes me is like the trials I struggled a lot with nerves and managing those nerves and focusing on myself and not focusing on the competition. And kind of a little bit still with the Olympics, like kind of the same thing. And this one, I did a really good job at, what do I need to be doing? What, why am I comparing myself with other athletes? And so it's not so much, taking six, kind of like I said earlier, that has me upset. More so, it's just the staying engaged part. If I took 10th and I did everything I could in the race, and I was completely engaged during those few miles, and let's just say, you throw in four other really good athletes and put them ahead of me, I could be like, yeah, New York was just a stacked field, but it's that staying engaged part.
Are you giving yourself a B? B
Probably a B,
minus?
probably, yeah, probably a B. Let's see. Yeah, because I just knocked down what I did for six of those miles and put those at like not great. So
It's wild. I think you're the only person. Yeah, again, of just being the harshest grader. A lot of people would give these A plus performances, but hey, this is what keeps you
hey, I'm
hungry for the
I'm gonna
next
get it
one.
right soon. I'm gonna get it right soon. But I'm close. And I think that's what's exciting to me is that after after New York, I'm like, okay, I've almost figured out. Well, I figured it out if it was like a chess match, I could be like, oh, I take that back and or a computer program. But I've almost figured out how to execute, and that gets me excited.
So, as kind of a bit of a transition, again, looking forward to next year, does that get you excited for? And again, like I'm sure you're still hammering away at what the spring marathon of your choice is going to be. Does it get you more excited for the opportunity to go and race a lot of the same guys like you'd assume a Chebet might lean towards returning to Boston because he thrives on a course like that. and like it seems like you've kind of, picked up enough cues on him, or striking while the iron's hot with all this fitness at 27 years old. You're about to turn, 28. Try and explore how fast you can go and get on a flat course. You have to weigh a lot, I guess, for next spring.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough to try and figure out what is the right move. I mean, it's obvious that Americans get paid better at the American marathons, and um,
And that's guaranteed
I
money.
and that's guaranteed money. Like, yeah. Um, but I do want to go after a record. I do want to go after a fast time. It's just hard to. I don't know. Part of me was hoping that if New York we started out fast, I could. I said this in one interview, and I probably shouldn't, but it doesn't matter. It's like who actually puts down the stock in these. But like I thought I could PR on New York's course on the other day, and I still think I could have. But I mean, when you start your first mile at 5:35, no matter how uphill it is I mean, yeah, with most marathon courses, that's so slow if you're trying to run, 450 pace.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Gonna let my agent get me some offers, and then yeah, talk to Coach Stone. Figure it
And
out. I do
see,
think one of my marathons though next year will be like going after a fast.
I like that. Now, the big question is, you saw Aisha Protlier and Eric Jenkins' acting,
Yeah.
this breakup. I mean, for now, it seems like you guys might want to keep this thing going and stay together through the spring. One, what did you make of the acting? And then two, I guess, have you given thought to, oh, what if Clayton and I don't race together? Like, does that benefit either one of us? Do we just keep playing the hits?
It is a funny thing. Like the acting was great. I like I like that Eric Jenkins was me. It's he's hilarious, so I thought it was great. The big thing like for me is I'm not really trying to run the same marathons as Clayton. I think like I told him after I told him before it. It was either before Chicago or before the trials. I think it was before the trials. I said, "Hey, you might want to think like I've kind of made up my mind. I'm probably going to do a fall marathon. And it's probably going to be New York. If you make the team, you should probably be thinking like you should probably make that decision after if you make the team. But like you should probably start thinking about it. That way you don't feel overwhelmed with all the decisions that come your way. But in my mind, it was already if I make the team, I'm probably going to run the New York Marathon. And I never like that didn't become something for sure for a while, but it's something that was already on my mind. And I don't know, part of me doesn't think it's great we run all the same races. Iceland doesn't think it's great we run all the same races. But then he still has us do the same races, which is kind of funny. I really think it's I don't know. To me, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I'd prefer to run um, the people I'm trying to chase, other than at the trials, are whoever's the best in the world. And so at the trials, it's I'm trying to chase the best Americans, and then I'll run some track. And unless I'm on a track, then Grant Fisher is one of the best in the world. But I'm not trying to focus on Clayton or be the top American.
Yeah.
It's really how can I compete with Tola? How can I compete with Chebet? How can I compete with Benson Kipruto and all the big names? And I think I'm getting there. It's slowly happening, and I just need to stay consistent, stay healthy, and improve a little bit at a time.
I guess the acting nailed it. Like where
Oh yeah,
it's you're gonna do your own thing, and it's just whether or not I think Clayton wants to come along for the ride sometimes. Because like he's, in each one of these races, he's been behind you. You've always been up toward the front, except I guess like in the trials is the one sort of exception there, like toward the finish line. But yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of how the skit played out, and uh, I could see you continuing to be the guy who's going to be pushing the pace up in the front, doing all the work, as Eric said.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know, I'd love, um,
You're like, he's a great guy, but if he chooses to
yeah,
do a different marathon, it's all right with me.
yeah, exactly. Like if Clayton wants to do something different, I'm not gonna be upset. Um, I'm not gonna be ecstatic about it. Like, but I'm not gonna be upset about it. I'm like, you do your thing, whatever's gonna, like, I think sometimes, you get in these groups and you can be like, what's best for both of us? And I think that can be detrimental to one person. And if you start trying to do the same things over and over again, or if you start trying to be like, we need to do this way, and um, we're pretty different people, I think so. Like maybe outside of Utah, we probably look the exact same, but I think our likes and our interests and the way we like to run and what we think, how we even view running is pretty different. I just yeah, I think it's just a difference of views.
Yeah. All right. You jumped on the track this year for the Olympic trials 10K just because it fit into training. You're in Eugene for team processing. You're like, I'll get in a hard effort. And it was really fun to see you back on the track. I saw you in Central Park day after the marathon, gave you a wave as you were as you were running with your wife. And then I joked on Strava. I was like, man, because I was on the phone with Kyle literally as I was running. And I said, with this guy's recovery time, he'd be great for these doubles that you've got going on at Grand Slam track. And there's a 3K, 5K category. Connor's got a PR of 741 for the 3K and 1310 for the 5K. Throw him in as a challenger if the meet is in May or June, assuming that you'll probably be recovering from a marathon if it's in March or April. But you're like, no, seriously, Kyle, like I'm down. This is for real. You would do it.
Yeah, I would do it for sure. I don't think.
Look into the camera and address Kyle
Yeah,
Merber and Michael Johnson as to why you should be a challenger for Grand Slam track next year.
see that's hard because I would love to do it, and I would be so ecstatic about it. Like, hey, Kyle Merber, Michael Johnson, put me in Grand Slam track and field, put me in a 3K, 5K, even the 1500 I don't care. But no, I
If
think
you've got a big training weekend, you could do all four in one weekend.
yeah, just put me in everything. Everything 800 and up. Nobody wants to see me be 100 meters behind in a 400, but I'm not gonna be. I would be a lot closer in a 3K or 5K. Um, but in a more realistic sense, like it would be so much fun. I just don't think I'm competitive enough when they're limiting it to 8 people per event. It's
I
hard
don't
to be like,
know.
I'm a 1310 guy. I'm a 741. Like
There's no pacers. Time doesn't matter.
that's true. That's true. But I don't know.
What did
I'm not like
NCAA's get
a
one in this year? What did Nico run? Because he did the 3K, 5K double on back-to-back days. So you could just assume it's a little bit faster.
yeah. That's true. I don't know what he ran, but
You're in. You're game for it.
oh, I would totally be game for it.
I feel like there's a handful of marathoners. I think it's like you and Safan Hassan who would make for great challengers in Grand Slam track next year.
It would be that would be something really fun, especially because this is what I think is weird. I don't know if you saw my reply on your Strava, but like the 3K might be the funnest event to run. I
It
don't know
is.
why, but every time I run it, I'm like, this is a blast. Because you're running fast, but it still feels like a distance event where you're kind of pacing it. But I feel like the 1500 for me is just it's so fast. It just feels like it takes me so long to get up to that speed. And once I finally feel like I'm ready to keep going, my race is over. But the 3K, like that, I feel like I get the speed, I'm feeling good, and the race is still going on, and then prepping for a kick.
All right, so I looked it up. Nico ran 13:25 on the first day and then came back to win the 3K in 7:41. I think you could do that. But assume, yeah, Grand Slam's going to be faster than NCAA's.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think I could run fast times there. I just don't know if I would be a real challenger, if that makes sense. Like, I bet I could go break my PR in both events in a weekend, but I don't think I would. Uh, in those races, I don't think I'd be. It's I have a lot of belief in myself, but it's difficult when I think of like Grant Fishers who I'm competing against.
I'm going on the Grand Slam track website right now, and the criteria for challengers, like is that they're looking for the most compelling matchups. And so I think even throwing you in for one, let's just see the experiment. Conner Mantz in one of the races, like it's compelling enough that I think it'll get some buzz going. Like, because then you've got all of the racers and all of the and the other challengers being like, I'm not going to lose to the guy who just ran a spring marathon.
It's true. It's true. I have had people tell me before or after races that they were like upset losing to me because I'm like when I did that 1500 in Eugene last year, I
Yeah.
ran 3:37. There was one individual who was pretty upset that I beat them because I was the old man marathoner, more or
You're
less.
like,
Like
I'm not
maybe
that
not old
old.
man. Yeah, I'm not that old, but I was the marathoner.
All right, final thing I wanted to touch on with you, and we can try and do these rapid fire in case you gotta get going here. But um,
I'm on break. I could talk forever. This is all that I have going on today.
all right, love it. So we did this overrated, underrated thing with Mark Coogan, Diljit when we've sat down and done interviews with them. I just did them with Joe Klecker, CJ, and Clayton. So I wanted to add you into the mix because you're a guy who loves all this training stuff. So your take, overrated, underrated, or properly rated, you can only use that a handful of times. So I'm going to throw out some of these things and you give me your quick take. Altitude, easy one.
Underrated.
Why is that?
I felt amazing when I was training in Park City and then coming down for workouts.
All right. Alter G.
Were also underrated. I think I think when I was injured before the trials that training my legs at a fast speed made it like the moment I was back on the ground training again, it seemed like between the Alter G and swimming kept my heart rate up and the Alter G kept that muscle memory getting used to it. By the time I was out training again, I was running pretty quick in workouts. I didn't have that. I didn't feel great by the time the race came, but my if I had 2 or 3 more weeks, I feel like I would have been in great shape. Like I should say, I was in great shape. I would have been in way better shape.
Double threshold.
Overrated, and more so because I think I hear a lot more about it than any other thing that you brought up. I think people talk more about double threshold than they do altitude. Um, I don't know enough about the science behind it, or like
Feels like you're a
also
believer in
enough.
like one big quality session.
Yeah, like I'm not. I'm still open to doing more double thresholds and trying it out, but in a way, I'm trying to think the right way to phrase this. I don't see that double thresholds really doing a ton for marathoners.
Yeah.
I could be wrong with that. The only one I know who's really had success with it is Cam Evans.
hmm But he's
Um,
also running 3 times a
yeah,
day
he's
sometimes.
running 3 times a day, so a double threshold for him is like just me getting a single session in. So,
Blood lactate testing.
oh,
So
I
that you
think
could
that's overrated.
you think it's overrated both in the
I
lab and in the field.
I think so, and this is the reason. I mean, and this is more marathon based, but which marathoners are doing it right
Yeah.
now? Is Jeffrey Camwar doing it? Is Abdi? McGee. I want
Nagay,
to say
yeah.
his last name right. I've been saying it wrong. Um, is Tola doing it? I don't think the top guys in the world are doing it.
So what do you think for
Uh,
the track? Properly rated?
I it probably is, and it'll probably come to the marathon eventually. But I've never done it. I've never had lactate levels tested. Um, but in a way, I think it.
Oh
Um,
wait, Fauble and Bates were doing it. I guess
oh,
Joe,
were they?
yeah, Joe's a big believer in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's something I need to look into. Maybe Joe smacks me around in this upcoming half marathon.
Yeah.
I need to reach out to Ray, see what half
Yeah.
half Joe's running and how to jump in it.
Super shoes.
Underrated. No, no, wait. Properly rated.
And you recently made a switch from the Alpha Fly one to the threes. You ran the Olympics in the threes, and now this most recent one in the threes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
S-
I have yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. Soft surfaces.
Um. Ooh, I think properly rated. I think I like running on them. I think they're great for training. I think they're great for a lot of things. I've heard some people say that you're not racing on them anymore, so you don't need to run on them. But
I think that's
if you
exactly
look,
what CJ said.
oh really?
Yeah.
I just look at the guys who've been the top in the world, and again, they're running on soft surface.
BU's track.
Overrated.
Isn't that where
I
your indoor PR is from, though?
Yeah,
That's
I
where your
think
overall PR is from.
that's where my overall PR is from. I I I didn't see the appeal. Um, no, but like I wouldn't. I feel like if I was in a good 5K and I was healthy, I think I could smash that PR. At least that year I could have. Um, at USA's I ran 13:11 and it was like 80 something degrees that year. So I kind of think that that outdoor one is a lot more impressive, even though uh, it
It's a second
is
slower.
slower.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a second slower.
Um, Pacing lights.
I've only had one race with those,
Was
or
that
two races
10?
with those. Yeah, one at the 10 and then one at the 1500 area last year. And both times I felt like I just kind of got pushed to a spot and I didn't really get to do much with the pacing lights.
Bicarb.
That's something I need to test out more.
You haven't used it at all, right?
I've
Or a
used
little
it
bit?
I've used it in workouts and then I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk more about it. So I've used one in a workout. But other than that, that's something I've really wanted to try out more. Just because there was a guy giving a presentation in LA like a week and a half ago that one of the guys I run with was at. And um, apparently there is some benefit to it if you continually drink it throughout the marathon. If you take it beforehand and then you keep taking it in every bottle. And there have been certain athletes with Martin that have been doing that.
Gotta
Um,
experiment.
So that's something I'm gonna try out, but I don't know if it's overrated or underrated.
All right. So we'll leave that one blank for now. Weightlifting.
Um, Depends
You
on
guys
who you're
have
talking to.
you guys go fairly often, right?
Twice a week. I mean, I think you need to do it. I don't know who's rating who would what the rating is for it right now, but I think for some people it's underrated, and for people some people overdo it, and for them it's overrated.
I think Mark Coogan said overrated.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cross training while healthy. This is the last one.
Depends on the person. Oh, part of me thinks it's underrated.
Because
Part of me
you
thinks
managed to
it's
get pretty
underrated.
fit before the trials while you were cross training.
That's true. That's
Oh, but you
true.
weren't
And
healthy.
even
Yeah.
no, I wasn't. Um, and Mev would do it.
On the
I'm
elliptical,
talking a
right?
lot. Yeah, what?
He did the elliptical for a long time.
Yeah, he would do like 1 or 2 hour ellipticals and then do like a single run, and that's it. And that's what he did for his like, Boston build. So it was like he was doing more time, I think, on the elliptical than he was running, and he won Boston. So part of me wonders, like even for the marathon, if that's a more effective way to train.
Yeah. So
But
underrated for now.
I think underrated, but I'm not doing it right now.
Yeah. Oh wait, I got a bonus one for you. Sauna suits.
Oh, underrated. For sure.
You
Don't
look
don't you
great in
just want
it
to look
in the
what? Yeah.
vlog. It was the funniest scene, I think, of the entire 16 episode series, where it's just the two of you in like beautiful Switzerland and just in the most ridiculous outfit I've ever seen. And the
Yeah.
fact that you kept yours on more often.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was great training for the heat. Well, part of it was um I'll tell you this one off air,
All right.
actually, when it's not being recorded. I'll tell you more of the reason.
All right. Well, where is it now? Packed away for the
Packed
season?
away. Yeah.
You haven't used it
So
since the Olympics?
no, because I had access to a sauna, and in Switzerland the sauna was a little different.
Okay. Well, I hope you do get to rock it again another time because
I like
it was hilarious. Well,
oh
Connor, I appreciate you doing this again with me. Um,
yeah,
Always an
thank
honor
you.
to chat with you after these biggest marathons. Someday, when you're 50 years old and you want to reminisce on these races, you can just queue up the CITIUS Mag podcast and go back and listen to your raw thoughts on each one of these races.
That's true. Maybe I'll just go to New York and chat with you there about it.
Love it.